Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snek, and yes, I promised to do not Monster Rancher 2 for the next Meet the Monster. Turns out I kinda lied. That being said, if you would all do that sweet like, comment, subscribe thing, that helps us out a ton. Thank you kindly. Today, we do, in fact, return to Monster Rancher 2 in order to raise one of the stranger monsters in the game, the Ducken. To unlock the Ducken, you must eat a boatload of cup jellies, or rather your monster does, until you get the randomly appearing diamond marks and then ship them off for the duck doll. Then you inexplicably find a tube of glue in a tree in the snow. This unlock makes about as much sense as any other in this game, and it can comfortably coincide with unlocking the Beaklon as well. And as a random aside, I find it hilarious that in the anime, Ducken's English voice actor is Terry Klassen, meaning he's also voiced Krillin in Dragon Ball, both being heroic characters with an attack that's a very strong spinning frisbee of doom. But would that be enough? Let's find out. For this run, I elected to use the outstanding More Monsters mod. Major props to everyone who's contributed to it, we all appreciate your efforts. Yes, I said I would do these as in line with 90s sensibilities as possible, but I saw the Ducken with a phoenix subtype, and I was so blown away by the idea of having a bird I couldn't help myself. And since it doesn't radically alter the gameplay, I'm giving the thumbs up to the More Monsters mod for the sake of these challenges. Anyway, looking at this fiery orange little guy, Ditaku and I reasoned that he looks like a Fabergé egg. Thus we elected to name him Fabergé with a little pointless punctuation mark to emphasize the accent at the end. And we begin with, what else, a massive disparity between stats and starting techs. His best stats were intelligence, skill, and speed, in that order, and both his starting techs are power-based. Sigh. However, despite never having raised one, I do know a thing or two about Duckens. They appear in regular enemy rosters throughout the entire game, so I know they can be mixed attackers. I resign myself to a rough childhood and get started, focusing primarily on the three aforementioned stats. Eventually, I decide to debut Fabergé in the Blue Sky Cup. A simple enough test, really. His first rival was Leon, one of the easiest monsters in the game, and it was a bit of a back and forth with us eventually gaining the upper hand. Which is great, but it ended up being rather short-lived in terms of celebrations, because the next enemy was Oakley Man. Oakley Man is the game's surprise stumbling block of the E-rank contenders, and Oakley Man, well, he Oakley Manned us, beating us by timeout and basically dodging every attack we threw at him until the fight was almost over, and even then it didn't do us any good when we did manage to hit. Unfortunately, we concluded this tournament by having Heracix do the same, making our first attempt at a tournament a bit of a wash. So there really was only one thing to take away from it all. We just need new attacks. So we head to the jungle and come back with Ducken Dance, where our little guy puts on his best swagger in order to wow his opponents. While gut sapping is not my go-to strategy, I'm not against putting this to some good use. It is an intelligence deck. I try to keep this momentum going and send him to the Alps for some speed. He returns with Falling Beak, which is a power tech. Emboldened, I tried the Monster Pups Cup, and I shouldn't have even bothered. Right out of the gate, we lost to Juno Mule and Leon. We lost to friggin' Leon! Yeah, we beat Nats with Fabergé's sensual swaying of his little duck hips, but we may as well have just skipped the tournament for all the good it did us. So, I can't ignore it. Back to the heavy trainings. Yes, I know the stress and fatigue impacts lifespan. I just can't help it. I don't have the option to brute force this via a stat differential if we're not using power in the build, so we just need intelligence moves. Duckens have them. I know they do. So, to the beaches of Torval he goes, and he comes back with Bound, a power tech, because of course it is. I take a brief moment to consider my strategy here. If we shifted gears now, it wouldn't be the end of the— Nah, I'm kidding. We're staying the course. I can make this work. Back to the jungle for more intelligence, and we get ambushed by an ape who proceeds to slap us around until I call off the fight to protect Fabergé's Fabergé ego. Good news, it's an intelligence move this time. It's called Surprise, and it's a withering tech, of course. Bad news, it's in the same attack slot as Ducken Dance, making it redundant at its best. I sigh, collect myself, and decide it's time to just enter the E-official. Maybe we'll all learn something from this. With 280 in intelligence, 175 in skill, and speed at 210, rounding up those three numbers to make me feel better about Fabergé's garbage skill growth, I figure we still have to be able to make something happen. Our first rival's Nats, who's basically neck and neck with Leon as worst monster in the E-rank. He only has attacks in one range band and relatively poor stats to show, and yet despite that he nearly thrashes us because we just can't dodge him. Fabergé is just refusing. We win, but just barely. Gut sap strategies don't exactly work if you can't hit consistently. Next up was Oakley Man, and I don't know what happened exactly, but we smoked him. For real, Surprise kept landing and dropping his guts to pathetically low levels, which meant his accuracy was terrible. We escape unscathed and win via timeout. Hera Kicks is a bit more aggressive, and we had to use a variety of moves just to do some damage. Also, I was playing in fast forward, and sometimes I just overshoot or I'm trying to input my command, but we very nearly knock him out. We handled it fine. Juno Mule is incredibly annoying and dodges about as well as we do, making this fight very painfully close until the very last minute. Ducken Dance dropped his health to visibly lower than ours, and we snagged the time over victory at the very last chance. Our last rival was Leon, who once more posed no threat. 2 surprises and a flutter slap, and he was our first knockout, moving Fabergé up to the D rank. From this point in the story going forward, assume that Fabergé asked for an ice candy item after each tournament without fail, because he did. Honestly, given that he appears to be on fire at every moment of his existence and Duckens already have those very stressed eyes, I can't say I feel bad about spending 40 gold to give him a popsicle now and then. So next we send him back to Torble Beach for skill and the new tech. Duckens just seem to have these attacks going spare, which is a refreshing change in pace from, say, Bajarl, and he comes back with Eye Beam. Not only is it an intelligence tech, it's freaking eye laser beams. What more do you need? Well, hit A, force D at 26 guts isn't perfect, but it takes up a new attack slot and it actually packs a punch. We then train for a bit on the ranch and decide to break the ice at Spring Carnival D, an elimination tournament. Our first enemy is Milliam the Pixie, who has a very similar stat block to our own. This means that there is a lot of missing in this fight, and she catches us with a ray, which does a good chunk of damage out of us, and only by catching her by surprise, see what I did there, did we come out on top when time finally struck. Next up is Sakura Art, a very ugly mochi. I approach a bit more carefully and let my guts build up before tapping it with a surprise attack which tilts guts in our favor. I then decide to try out our literal eye laser beams, which do respectable bits of damage, especially when I double up on them and take our enemy down to critical. After pausing a moment to gather some energy, another eye beams knocks the mochi out for the win. This means that we actually have a fighting chance in the D rank already. So next we return to the Pappas Alps and gain a new tech. This is when we're accosted by Rapid Fist the Hare. Since they're about even stat-wise, I decide to let this one play out, and I get to see our new attack in action. Boomerang! I was actually hoping to get that one purely for thematic purposes, and Fabergé did not let us down. The stray monster did not pose a huge threat, as our Ducken wore it down with a flurry of relentless attacks without getting hit even once. Boomerang is a hit C force D attack, which is good because it gives it reliability, but it's in the same attack row as Eye Beams. While I can't complain for decent attacks, I can complain that they're very frustratingly clumped together in the middle of the attack reel. I then take some time to shore up our stats before entering the D official. We now have intelligence and speed over 400 and skill lagging behind at 240. Definitely a bit of a pain point, but maybe we can make it work anyway. Sakura Art is our rival out of the gate, so I like to test Boomerang on it to great success. A hit leaves the mochi with just 34 HP remaining, so yeah, it packs a wallop alright. We miss a few more times before the match is over, but win via timeout. Haramoa is not much of a threat, as Ducken Dancer Leon puts him on his back foot, and Boomerang technically knocks it out, even if it has the grit condition, but we still won. Palmer the Plant is not much of a threat. Boomerang critical hit, whacking that weed in just one blow. Sleep Bomb the Baku is a deceptively deadly enemy, as we tap his enormous HP in defense with Boomerang twice before we start whiffing a whole bunch. How one misses something the size of a barn door is beyond me, but we're unable to hit him again at this point. And while he does get some shots off on Fabergé, it's not enough, and we win via time over. Our last matchup is with Capella, who we get one good hit with Boomerang and just kind of dodge each other the rest of the match. I inadvertently use Falling Beak on him once, which triggers the anger stats, and to be fair, I can understand why a wooden doll smacking you on the noggin might tick you off a smidge. Point of the story, we won and easily moved up to the C rank. So next I decide to send Fabergé to the Mandy Desert. You might be asking, Snek, why are you sending a monster that you want intelligence moves for to the power course? Simple, that's just not how attack unlocks work in the first 2 Monster Rancher games. It's done by attack type. Mandy is simply the heavy attack training. Whether it's power or intelligence is besides the point, so long as it is a heavy tech. We're attacked at the end of the course by Bug-Eyed the Suezo, and let me tell you, Fabergé was eager to show off because he then proceeded to fire a freaking missile out of his beak and felled the mono-eyed monster in one shot. Missile, the aptly named move, locks into the furthest range band in our attack slot, which is something that we desperately need for coverage. It has a guts cost of 19, E hit but C force. Definitely useful against tanky monsters, and possibly literal actual tanks at that, assuming those even exist in this world. At this point, I think the die is cast. We could keep trying to fish for more text, but the differential it was making in terms of lifespan hits was probably gathering to the side of excessive. We probably just need to go with what we have from here. To test the newfound firepower, we enter the Karia Cup. Our first enemy, Hyoe the Kato, has a really similar disproportionate distribution of stats, just not as extreme as ours. Problem being that he's fast, and we whiff a bunch up until he makes just one misstep. He gets foolery, and so I launch out, bombing. It critical hits and deals 540 damage to the enemy who has a max HP of 127. Duckens are kind of insane. Offray the Ghost is likewise no real threat. He taps us once and eats a missile in return, getting shut down in just one hit. Pivoros is a color Pandora with an absurd HP stat and not a lot else going on. But they? I don't know. Dodged obnoxiously well. It wasn't until I caught him with a missile and put him in 200 HP down that we finally could breathe easy and claimed the win via time. This proved what I needed to know, and it was time for the official. The official C starts off on a rerun, with us knocking Hyoe out once more, and Offrey deciding he did not want a second helping and forfeits, giving us 2 easy wins to dive in with. Well, Ranmo the Ape is an interesting enemy because he's pretty easy to bait into wasting guts via Tasty Banana, and I just spam I-beams and drop him to critical before time runs out. Rock Geiger got hit by 2 I-beams and was just knocked out already. Reknan the Kaboo met his day of Reknaning via I-beam, and the Ducken dance to seal the deal. Sorry, that pun was forced even by my standards. Then Pivoro showed up again, just to annoy me, dodged everything I could muster, and he won via timeout without either contestant really losing very much health at all. I hate color Pandoras, in case I haven't made that clear. Last contestant was Gunburn the Suezo, who got 1-hit KO'd via I-beams. The irony. Despite lacking a perfect win record, we still had the best one, so we won and easily moved to the B rank. It is then, at this point, when Fabergé is 2 years, 2 months old, that Colt gives us the prime notice. Which is interesting, as that means this guy is really a late bloomer growth type, and it meant that we were on the clock going forward. His best stat gains means that he was hitting the growth ceiling during most types of heavy training, but that meant that we were officially burning the candle at both ends, and a high-stress lifestyle up to this point likely didn't agree with him much. I elected us to alternate meditate and leap drills and allow skill to lag behind. It just wasn't worth fighting it at this point. So it was at this leg of things that we decided to prepare and simply dive into the official. Time was ticking away far too quackly to play it safe now. Our newfound burst in power aided us by getting intelligence over 700, meaning that when we hit Epsilon the Hanger with I-beam just once, it was instantaneously fatal. Tira veiled the plant and we just kinda stood there awkwardly, charging guts and then using I-beams to finish the fight. Kind of anticlimactic if you must know. Duelist the Monol was... You guys know what I'm going to say, right? I-beams had become a tried, tested, and reliable killing blow, and this was no exception. Sanjuris the Galley hurt us pretty bad, but Ducken Dance thwarted his efforts, and then I-beam ended them. Robanil the Worm attacked pretty relentlessly, but just couldn't hit us. He was rewarded for his efforts by an I-beam and being finished off with a missile. Balloom hit us one good time early on, and we just couldn't return the favor the entire match, and lost via the timeout. Lequel the Hare got grit after an I-beam, but couldn't get back up again after a missile to the face no matter how much Chumbawamba he listened to. At this point, I figure all the cards are on the table, and whether we win or lose at this point, we still made one heck of a showing. I elect to take advantage of one last air entry discount notice and sent Fabergé to Torval Coast, whereupon he was attacked by freaking Zilla King. Before I can even call the match off, he fires a missile into the big guy's center of mass, giving it the anger status, something this little guy just can't seem to stop doing. However, this is an obvious mismatch, and we elect to run away. For our time, we got Beam Shower, a tech chain off I-beams, with hit S and 4C for 35 guts. That's expensive, but that's a ridiculously strong tech, put in the same column as I-beams itself. Great, don't love that. At this point, it's time for the A official. We begin with my old mortal nemesis, Catalina, who fails to open the fight with an instant one-shot win condition, and instead falls to I-beams coming from us this time. Lambsweet the Mochi goes down in one blow of missile, though to be fair, I'm not too sure many things don't die when hit by a missile head-on, but details. And this is going on a bit long. Kitty, Sharkin, Arculon, Kaplan, and Siva all are defeated by a mixture of I-beams and the periodic finishing blow of Ducken Dance. And then Colt tells me the one thing I just don't want to hear. the dreaded retirement warning. He also begins failing training very consistently at this point, so I know it's not good. But I can't just be satisfied with this. I have to try. So we enter into the S official, where his rank would be solidified for good or for ill. Stop shouting at the screen saying it will be S either way. This matters. Aqualine the Color Pandora is a weird fight, because both of us only land one hit on the other. Ours happened to be Missile, which was just barely enough, winning with 46% of our HP to 33% of his, but good enough. Ordorf hit us just once and put us to 30 HP. Then we I-beamed him twice and knocked him out. That was stressful. Zagref snatched victory from the jaws of defeat when he got one lucky hit in after we got him down to critical, and because Fabergé lives up to his namesake in terms of his defense, we folded like a house of cards in just the one blow. Unfortunate, but that's not the end of the run. Prometheus went down via I-beams, as many had before. Daphael is a very tanky galley. A Ducken dance, an I-beam, and a missile were necessary to knock him out to seize the win. Goliath the Baku finally brought an end to our rash of bad luck against the Bakus, as we easily I-beamed him to the knockout and won. Recurring super threat Thanatos was not, and got I-beamed to death. Because of how the win breakdown fleshed out, this meant that we had to have a rematch against Zagref. If you were expecting some kind of climactic battle shonen finale, it really wasn't. We I-beamed him twice and knocked him out, sealing the S official and bringing Fabergé's run to its conclusion. I mean, maybe he had time enough for one great four in him, but we had pushed our luck a lot to get this far, and he wasn't exactly my top-tier material, with a very imbalanced stat and attack loadout. Raising a Ducken was something. I'm still not entirely sure what it was, but it was something. I'm not sure I really learned anything from this at all, but I do somehow feel one step closer to enlightenment despite that. Duckens can be a little tricky in childhood, but they grow up fast and they can grow into whatever you need them to be. While I think having something as rare as a Phoenix subtype likely skewed things at least a little, as in baseline MR2 only Phoenix and Durahan can have that subtype, Duckens only have one bad stat, which is defense with E growth. And it shows. Duckens make for interesting and devastating mixed attackers, and they have a lot of attacks in most cases. I barely had to fight to get them even. For once. I really enjoyed raising Fabergé, and had I been a little bit more careful, or perhaps just a bit more lucky, I think he might have had it in him to go even further. But still, very impressive outing for such a very strange monster. I hope you all learned something from this too. Join me next time in Meet the Monsters, where we'll discuss Ripper, Modillo, and Agyo. See you there.